My campaign of terror is ready to reign across the world. The players will never see what's coming. I have taken everything into account and have made sure to manipulate it and twist it to my evil will. Except for one little detail, but I'm sure it won't matter. It probably won't matter. It matters, doesn't it? Oh. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Campaign Creator Series. My name is Guy and today we're looking at Session 0 and why you need to have a Session 0 in the first place when it comes to creating your campaigns. Now this is the very first time, this is so exciting. This is the first time that your players and that you game master, it's the first time that you're going to get to play in this world that you have been fastidiously creating so far. Take a deep breath. Things are about to get real. So what do we need to do in a Session 0 to make sure that the Session 0 works not only as a Session 0 for our players and for their characters, but for us as the game masters and as the world creators? There are some things that we need to be very, very aware of during a Session 0 as a campaign creator, much more so than as a simple GM running an adventure module or in a pre-constructed world. So we're going to have a look at those three things today. So let's have a look. We're going to look at testing some stuff, we're going to look at running some stuff, and then we're going to look at some notes that we need to take. Yes, notes. Oh, we love notes. No, yes. So we're going to look at these three different components to a Session 0 campaign. Now, adventure, I should say. This is not excluding the fact that you should still have all of your regular plans for your Session 0. So let's jump straight into it. So if we look at the test, what must we test for in our Session 0? This is arguably the most important one. So when we test, we're looking for fit. We're looking for all kinds of curiosities. The cultures that we've been fastidiously making and crafting and trying to make unique and working out the handshakes and how else, how do they say hello and all those kinds of things. All of the cultural aspects you need to test at this point. If you have a culture that is quite dominant, or you have a culture that is quite aggressive, or a culture that varies from what we perceive to be the traditional gaming culture. So if that's within a fantasy environment, the traditional gaming culture is this kind of European-esque medieval thing where city guards are city guards, sheriffs are sheriffs, the lords and ladies sit in their high towers, and the average Joe can move around on the street without too much fear. If you are, however, using a culture where the culture is incredibly dominant, it's incredibly controlling, it's paranoid, maybe it's very different, maybe there's no hierarchical structure and everyone just sits around, in tie-dyed shirts and things, whatever the situation, whatever the culture that you've come up with, this is where you need to test it. So don't set your Session 0 out in the middle of the woods where your characters do not get to interact with your principal culture. It doesn't make sense not to do it, so don't do it. Have your party start off in town so that you can describe some of the architecture, the Corinthian capitals that sit atop these massive marble pillars that are all fluted and beautiful in their execution, the large statues to the great heroes and mages of old, the pleasant guards that wander by in their great plumed helmets with their big long cheek visors and their majestic breastplate armor and their blue capes. Have a go at creating that setting. Express it to your players. Let them see what it's like. Session zeros don't necessarily have to have a runtime. They could be a standard 4-hour length. Most of the time you're going to be utilizing a playing session that you would normally have played in anyway. So start it in the culture that you've been creating and then take it to the other cultures that you've been creating as well. Test them out. See what your players think about them, and we're going to come to that in a little bit. I'm jumping ahead. So culture. Check and test the culture that you have created. Transport. We were talking about transport. We were talking about transport quite heavily in earlier sessions. We were working out, well, can we have flying griffins, and we can have, magic trains, and we can have submarines, we can have ships, and we can have teleportation circles, and we can have this, and we can have that. Yes, you can. You can have all of that kind of stuff included into your session zero. Let the players know if they're flying ships, start them on a flying ship that's docking into the culture that you're going to be predominantly playing in. Get them into that space as fast as you can, and then give them the stuff that is unique to your world. If you have these griffin riders, and griffins are a common sort of place type of thing, and it's something that you're going to have most often in your campaign, then let them have griffins, for Pete's sakes. Let them experience that. There's a reason for it. We're going to come to it, but give them what they are going to be exposed to. Give them something that they're going to explore and something they're going to play with. It's absolutely important that you do so. You also need to test out some of your enemies. Mwahaha! Test out your enemies. Why do you need to test out your enemies? Well, because in our case, in our campaign with the evil Jakar who is busy launching her invasion of all of Utherios, let's encounter some Slardy. Let's encounter some of those forces of hers. Again, so the players get a sense of how difficult the campaign is likely to be. Give them some minions to fight, and then give them some proper enemies so that they get a sense, oh my goodness, this is the true nature of the individuals that we're going to encounter. You're not giving the game away. Don't sit there going, yeah, but you see, that's just giving it all away. That's letting the players know the whole thing. It's not. It isn't. It's just sampling. It's sprinkling. It's going, here's the culture. What do you think of the culture? Here's the transportation system. What do you think of the transportation system? But also, it's for you to sit back and to go, I'm not sure. Let's just go to the next slide here. I'm not sure. Is it too easy to get from point A to point B? Are the monsters too easy? Is the culture too difficult? Does it get in the way too much? As a GM, you can feel this. You can go, oh, wow, it took them 20 minutes just to talk to the police force who were interrogating them as to where they'd come from because the police are so interrogatory. It's too much. What you should do is you should run at least one combat involving those Slardy forces. At least one NPC interaction. Again, why one NPC interaction? Well, it's doing a whole bunch of stuff. And this one principally is actually what you should be doing during a session zero anyway, regardless of whether it's in your own campaign or not. But the idea of running a combat is so that the players can see what their character's like. Because this is for the players to also go, well, I thought this barbarian lizard folk was going to be fun, but no, not really. Not that fun. So they're going to change, they're going to whatever. But it's also so that when you're running NPC interactions, you're bringing in that culture again, you're trying to bring in the flavor of the world again, you're trying to bring in all of those things that you've been working on so hard, as well as then testing to see whether the players, if they're your first time group, are interested in combat, are interested in NPC interaction. And then this last one, puzzles, riddles, and problems, right here at the back. Puzzles, riddles, and problems. Are your party interested in solving those kinds of things? Are those things that they want to look into? Is it something that gets them to go, oh yes, oh, a nice puzzle, I'm going to get my teeth in there, I'm going to really get involved in that? Is it something that they like? Or is it something that they're going to go, it was too complicated, I didn't like it. So then finally, what you should be doing while you're doing all of this, so you're busy running the king and you're combat gang and you're kind of doing interactions, all that kind of, oh yeah, it's brilliant, it's marvelous. Look at your player reactions. When you describe, there's this magnificent columned Parthenon up on the hill with a great big dome in it, which makes it different from the Pantheon. The Parthenon has got this great big dome in it. It's an architectural wonder. It's just brilliant. It's marvellous. And there's griffins flying in and out, and there's Pegasi wandering the streets, sort of, you know, with little gnomes running after them with shovels and sort of chucking the dung into the carts and things. You know, there's all these things going on. If your players are reacting at, yes, I want one of them. If that's what they're doing, then you're in a good space. It means the culture you've created is good, the environment you've created is good, and the transportation systems that you've created has started to get them to get excited. If they go, oh, it's a Stargate. Oh, I like Stargates. Where can we? Do we need spells to get around? Do we need this to get around? If they're embracing what you are giving them, it means that you are giving them something that they enjoy. If they're looking at it and they're going, yes, okay. Are there any dungeon? Are we going to have any kind of dungeony stuff? Because this is all. It's nice, but yeah. Is this it? Gauge their reactions. You're the best suited to do so. You're sitting at the head of the table, presumably watching all of their reactions. If they are excited, you should be excited. If they're not excited, try and figure out why. Send them some bits and pieces from your campaign world. See which ones stick, which ones get them excited. Look at the character choices, the character choices. I pre-make these slides. I really should pre-spell check them too. Nonetheless, if you look at the character choices, let's just do that. Look at the character choices. If you look at the character choices, I'm not going to live this down. If you look at the character choices, look at the character choices. Are they choosing to go down the paths of exploring the city and exploring the people? Are they trying to get out of your city as fast as humanly possible? Are they looking for dungeons? Are they avoiding traps? Are they avoiding this? Are they avoiding that? Look at those choices and try and identify which ones seem to be ones that they made almost naturally without too much coaxing from you, and ones that they didn't. If there was like, how do we get around? And you've described griffins flying overhead and massive magical carts that move on their own. It might be your players. It might be that you missed that the peasants are riding the griffins as they go about their daily duty. Think about that. All right, so then moments of joy. Moments of joy are things that I think we sometimes don't look at enough as game masters. When our players are reacting with a sign of awe or happiness over an event or some kind of action, note it down and give them more of that. If when they slay the Hydra, they go, yay, we slayed the Hydra, that was brilliant, that was wonderful, that was marvelous. Right, Hydras. It's Hydras all the way down now. Hydras around every corner. But if when they get to the point that they slayed the Hydra and they're like, okay, cool, now that's out the way. Now, what's in its cave? Let's go deeper in. If it's just a combat for them and they're kind of meh, and they've moved on, then so should you. So it's all about looking at what works and what doesn't work during the session zero, as well as letting your characters and your players explore their characters and the like. I mean, that's absolutely important. People really do need to enjoy the character that they're going to be playing so that you can avoid either having to conform and convert a character later or lose a character, or you get a player who kind of goes, I don't like this. You don't want to do that. So the idea is session zero, test stuff. Run specific things to test the things that you are looking to explore within your campaign world, and then take note of what's happening. If you run those three things, test, run, and note, if you do those in your session zero, you will get such an amazing experience from looking at what worked and at what didn't work. And what we're going to do in the next session is we're going to go back and undo everything that didn't work. We're going to revise, we're going to update, and then we're going to move forward, because it's time now for us to really get into the meat of things. So this is where session zero is going to help us. And if we don't have a session zero, we are basically just shooting in the dark as to whether people will like our environment or not. So it is definitely something to bear in mind, and it's definitely something to run, even if you have played with your group for years. A session 0 is still useful because you haven't played in this world yet. So you need to know how it feels and how it works and operates, and this is the way to do it. Anyway, I wish you and yours the very happiest of campaign creation. I have revised, I have updated, I have sought out the augurs of the future. And what we have seen, oh, we like what we have seen, oh yes. The forces of darkness have subscribed to our new model, and they will be unbeatable. They will destroy everything. We've even got a new communication system. It's a bell, which when you press it, everyone gets to know what's going on. It's amazing. Now we take over the world.